it's Reagan, and today I am doing a different type of recommendations video than I normally do on my channel. But today, my friends, I'm gonna be highlighting and recommending some sexy, steamy reads. Now, you guys are probably aware that I don't necessarily read a lot of romance, but I do enjoy, every once in a while, a book or book series that definitely has romance as a heavy plot element, especially when it kind of leans on the steamier, sexier side. I personally think it's a lot of fun. I like to read it. So today I thought I would compile some of my favorite series or stories that have this element to them. Keep in mind, as I kind of just alluded to, I don't read a lot of straight romance, so pretty much all of these recommendations are going to be books that are a part of, you know, paranormal, fantasy, post-apocalyptic type of stories that either have romance, a steamy romance at kind of the center to the plot that's driving a lot of these characters forward, or they're a huge element secondarily as a subplot. But all of these books, I promise, have quite the steamy romance with some great sexual tension. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and dive right in. The first books I feel like I have to mention, I kind of have to get them out of the way, and that is Sarah J. Maas's series. We have the Throne of Glass series and the Court of Thorns and Roses series. Both of these are great, and both of them have some dang good romance. Say what you will about Sarah J. Maas, but girl knows how to write some sexual tension, alright? Both of these are fae-centered fantasy stories that have kind of different degrees. I would say this series, The Court of Thorns and Roses, definitely leans more new adult and definitely has a little more explicit, steamy, sexy times. But Throne of Glass, I feel like, is quickly kind of jumping the ladder as well. As I kind of mentioned, Sarah J. Maas, I feel like, is a pro between writing not only main romances, but secondary character romances with all of the sexual tension. Literally, you will just be flipping the pages to get the goods, okay? You are cheering for everyone, and it's just like trash, but you love it, okay? You love it. This is a great, if you want romance and fantasy, or even just romance, I would highly recommend reading Sarah J. Maas's books, because they're basically like romance fantasy, and I'm here for it. I have to say her plots are very interesting as well, because they are. Her romantic plots and her fantasy plots are all highly entertaining, so read them. Next on my list is a pretty well-loved paranormal series, and that is the Fae Fever series by Karen Marie Moning. This to me is like the classic paranormal story that has paranormal creatures or paranormal elements or plot lines, but it is very much, I feel like, romance first and foremost. This follows our main character that goes to Ireland after her sister is mysteriously murdered. She has very few clues at hand, but she does have a voicemail that leads her to Ireland. There, she discovers she can see all sorts of fae creatures. We have a lot of fae series in this video. And there she meets a sexy and brooding bookstore owner who she is determined to get her to help her figure out her sister's mysterious death. And essentially, this is a series of constant sexual tension and back and forth between these two characters. It is addicting, it's slightly problematic, but I just had to call that out. But I personally really enjoy this series. It's highly entertaining and highly addicting. You're gonna be flipping these pages so fast. It's full of many of a steamy scene. I mean, many of them. Again, can be problematic, so keep that in mind. But if this is something that you feel like you will enjoy, I highly recommend it. Next on my list is The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. Now this is definitely an example of, I feel like, the romance being more of a secondary subplot, but is still a great element to the story. This is a very large fantasy world with lots of action, lots of characters, and lots of complexities. We follow our main character who lives in a world where mind powers are illegal. Therefore, people who often have telepathic abilities kind of congregate in gangs for protection against the government. Our main character has telepathic abilities, gets captured at the beginning of this book, and is sent to this weird, like, camp thing. And there she encounters some magical types of creatures that control the world. And also, there's romance, okay? There is some, again, sexual tension, again, steamy, hot guy is involved, but there's also a lot of mystery and intrigue and action. This is definitely a novel for someone who likes having romance as a secondary subplot, perhaps steamy romance as a secondary subplot, but definitely still wants a main plot driving the story forward with lots of action, lots of really great fantastical elements. This, I feel like, is perfect for you. So I love the bone season. Next, I have an old favorite, and that is Angel Fall. This is a post-apocalyptic angel story. We follow our main character who lives in a world where the world has ended. Everything's gone to crap because the angels have gone to Earth and they are waging war and destroying everything. Most humans have died. She herself is purely trying to survive until she stumbles upon a fallen, injured angel. That's right, my friends. Angel love. There, she decides to team up with an unlikely person, Raffi, this fallen angel, because she views him as a way to help protect her family from the wildness that surrounds her. Obviously forbidden romance, obviously we're all here for it. It's a page turner, but it also has really great post-apocalyptic world building, and I really feel like the author does a great job building suspense and a really great job crafting a world that is very desperate. And I personally really enjoyed this story, not just for the romance, but for the plot and the overall fantasy storyline as well. So it's all great. Next up, I have the Daughter of Smoke and Bones series. And now this I was almost kind of hesitant to add to this list because I don't want people to just think this is a romance book. In a way, this is almost like a Romeo and Juliet fantasy angels and demons retelling, but with heavy emphasis on culture clash and war and all of those things as well. I mean, Laini Taylor is one of my favorite authors, and she definitely has many layers to her narratives that add incredible complexity, but there is a highly suspenseful, highly like you're on the edge of your seat romance where you just want things to happen, but it's also so difficult because there's so many things keeping these people apart. That makes sense. It's not just like communication issues, it's like war and thousands of years of history and all sorts of complexities. But this follows our main character who basically collects teeth for a living. She sells these teeth to the people who raised her, which are Chimera, who are a race of creatures that have been at war with this more like angel race for millennium, like for all of time basically. And it's very, very complicated, but at the beginning of the story, a burned handprint appears on this door that she always goes through to sell her teeth, and she kind of gets wrapped up in this whole war, and it's so much more complex than that. I can't even really go into it, but it just to kind of sell it a little bit more, it does kind of have a Romeo and Juliet-esque style romance, but without the stupidity and without the youth element of just people acting stupid. In fact, this is probably the only Romeo and Juliet style romance that I actually like, because I actually hate that trope usually. It annoys the heck out of me. But these people really are star-crossed lovers, torn apart by a feuding group. And honestly, there's just like so much to the story. If you haven't read it, just read it. But there is that element, and it's good, let me tell you. Next is another classic, and that is the Shatter Me series by Tahereh Mafi. I feel like this is especially pertinent because the fourth book is coming out very, very soon. But this to me was one of the classics, one of the first steamy YA novels I ever read, and I loved it when I read it. This is a story following our main character who at the beginning of the novel is in prison, and she's there because her touch basically kills people. And this isolation is driving our main character Juliet kind of to spiral both into a depression and also a lot of self-doubt. And at the beginning of the story, she's broken out. And this is a world that is post-apocalyptic, but I would definitely say this is a YA story that has elements of, you know, an action adventure story, but it's definitely character focused and also therefore romance focused, but also friendship focused. It has a lot of, you're gonna hear it again, sexual tension, and it honestly has one of the most notorious chapters, I feel like, that has existed in YA. I mean, it is a very notorious chapter, and we're all here for it. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. But this is a great book full of great characters that you love to hate, that you root for, and it also has a very interesting background. It's definitely not necessarily like highly action. It's not like Daughter of Smoke and Bone that has a lot of actual warrior elements of people fighting and the complexities of the politics. This is definitely has those elements, but they're definitely more on the back burner to the relationships. But it is another highly addicting story full of great romance. Alrighty guys, those are my steamy, sexy book recommendations. Let me know down below some books you personally love that kind of fit in this category, as I would love to know. And I will see you guys soon with another video soon. Goodbye!